Tokyo 2004. You're walking home late one night when you see something strange in the distance. At first, you think it's just a lost tourist, but as you get closer, you realize there's something different about him. He's dressed all in black. His neck is stiff, his eyes blank, and worst of all, he seems completely unaware of his surroundings. Are you going to approach him? What do you do? Now let's rewind. In early 2004, a man appeared in Tokyo. He didn't just appear. He walked into a busy train station shortly before midnight. But when the police arrived, they found him behaving strangely, standing motionless and staring straight ahead. Some reports say he was sweating profusely. Others mention nothing of the sort. That may seem like a small inconsistency, but stick with me. The details of this case are surprisingly murky. What is certain is that this man had no identification, no money, no luggage, and he couldn't remember who he was, nor could anyone figure out who he was. This is the curious case of the John Doe of Japan. It's also known as the Tokyo Unidentified Man, or the Black Man of Tokyo. He'd been clean-shaven, with slicked-back black hair and a pale complexion. He wore a black suit, black shirt, and black tie. One of his shoes was untied, and both were scuffed and covered in mud. This detail will become relevant later. The man spoke perfect English, but couldn't tell the police his name or anything else about himself. They asked him where he lived, where he worked, even where he was from. All he ever said was that he felt unwell. Reports differ on whether or not he believed he was under surveillance. Some say he did. Others claim he denied it outright. Either way, he said the Japanese authorities would soon find out who he was. They never did. And now we have to ask ourselves, should they have? When the officers brought him to a local hospital for evaluation, scans revealed nothing physically wrong. He was coherent, polite, even well-mannered. But every attempt to identify him came up empty. Japan has one of the largest and most comprehensive biometric databases in the world. Yet when they ran his fingerprints through their system, nothing came back. The same happened with facial recognition technology. There were no matches. The man's photograph was plastered across every newspaper in the country. Even so, nobody came forward to claim him. As far as we know, he still hasn't been identified. The Japanese press dubbed him the John Doe of Japan, though some American news outlets have called him the Black Man of Tokyo, and others refer to him as the man in the black suit. For obvious reasons, this is the least important detail. But since the reports don't agree on exactly what he looked like, I'm sticking with the Black Man of Tokyo. You can call me the narrator in the grey hoodie. Welcome to this channel. In the end, the police released him back onto the streets with only $100 in his pocket. Just like that, the theory that he was an undercover spy who suddenly went rogue doesn't make much sense. If he had amnesia, why would he wander into a crowded train station in the middle of the night? And if he was trying to lay low, why didn't he change his appearance? Why wear a black suit in the middle of April? Tokyo can get hot and humid in April. I have no idea why I included that detail, but it's a good example of the inconsistencies in this case. What's more, how could someone disappear without a trace, especially in Japan? Their national ID system is practically flawless. Everyone who enters the country gets registered, and their biometric data is recorded. Theoretically, he could have entered Japan illegally, but that's highly unlikely. And besides, he used his ID at the hospital, which obviously wasn't fake. When I dug further into this case, I kept hitting dead ends. Most of what you read online is pure speculation. The case inspired a manga series called Another 7750 Go Home, which spawned a popular anime adaptation, but the creators took creative liberties. The show departs from reality in almost every respect, turning the Black Man of Tokyo into an amnesiac alien named 17750 Go Home. But here's the thing. Scientists say memory loss that renders a person unrecognizable is extremely rare. It can happen, sure, but it's more likely that he was intoxicated or high on something. The only problem is that toxicology reports found nothing in his system. His blood contained no drugs or alcohol. Furthermore, witnesses later told the police that they saw him standing in front of the Hotel Grary with two other men right before he disappeared. But once again, all efforts to track down these men failed. There's nothing to suggest they weren't real, though. I think it's safe to assume that the police did everything they could. So what else could explain this bizarre situation? What if he really was a spy, not necessarily a bad guy? Maybe the US or UK sent him on a mission. Then something went wrong. But what kind of mission would require a man to walk around in a black suit in the middle of the night, in the dead of winter? Okay, maybe he wasn't a spy. What if he was a time traveler? Hear me out. We've heard similar stories throughout history. The most famous involves a man who showed up in the 1960s, claiming to be from the country of Taured. When he tried to get a hotel room, the clerk asked him to wait while she checked him in. When she returned, he vanished. Over the years, countless people have claimed to see him, but he's never stayed still long enough to capture him on camera. He's simply too fast. You see, this case is remarkably similar to the case of the man from Taured, except the man from Taured seems to be stuck in our dimension. Is it possible that the Black Man of Tokyo was lost or displaced somehow? Maybe. But then how did he return home? The question is, does he even know where he's from? So what do we have? A man who apparently knows English, yet he doesn't speak Japanese. He's dressed in modern clothes, yet his shoes are muddy. He's wearing a sophisticated suit, but he looks like he's been walking barefoot. These contradictions are impossible to reconcile. And here's another oddity. When the police brought him to the station, he carried a small leather bag with a padlock. The police didn't cut it open. Instead, they left the padlock intact. So whatever was inside the bag, it remains locked. They did remove the contents of his pockets, though. They found 2 crumpled receipts, a bus ticket from April 2003 and another receipt from the Hotel Grary dated April 24, 2004. You probably already know that this is all pretty suspicious. They could have easily planted these receipts in his pocket. It's not proof of anything, but it adds to the possibility that this was some sort of elaborate ruse. I'll let you decide what to make of it. But it's hard to ignore the fact that every piece of evidence points to multiple realities, none of which makes any sense. That brings us to the John Doe cases that have puzzled us over the decades, the likes of the Somerton Man or Taman Shud. This is one of those strange cases that seems more suited to a cold case file than a video game. The difference is that the Black Man of Tokyo never got a proper investigation. The police threw their hands up and essentially wrote him off as a crazy person. That's not fair. In some ways, he reminds me of the girl in the bathtub. Remember her? She turned up in South Carolina in 2007. People spotted her wandering around Columbia, and each encounter became stranger than the last. She always seemed confused, and sometimes she took on strange postures. Eventually, she ended up in a hospital after being found floating in a hotel pool. I'll spare you the gruesome details, but let's just say she didn't look human. By the time the ambulance arrived, her body temperature was 89.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and she was unresponsive. Despite the best efforts of medical professionals, she died 4 days later. As disturbing as this case is, we have a few answers. The girl's name was Alexis Brianna Briand. She suffered from a rare condition called autogynephilia. Basically, she liked having sex with herself, and it seems she took things a little too far. Sadly, no one will ever know what went wrong, because all the evidence was destroyed during the autopsy. Stories like this are horrifying, but they have explanations. With the Black Man of Tokyo, we have nothing. Every clue leads us deeper into a rabbit hole of mysteries and coincidences. Where did he come from? Why did he show up in Tokyo? And who were those men at the Hotel Grary? It's not clear if any of these questions will ever be answered. These days, it seems impossible for a person to simply vanish. We're documented everywhere. Our phones, bank accounts, credit cards, cars, homes, workplaces, schools, and friends. Somebody has to notice if we disappear, right? Well, there are more than 55 million people missing in America alone. And each of these cases proves that it's still possible for a person to exist, but it's also possible for them to vanish without a trace, without leaving behind a name. If this mystery gave you chills, hit the like button and subscribe, because the next story might be even stranger. See you next time.